Well, hello, Dr. Winningham. It's great to see you in person.
Oh, it's good to be here with you.
Thank you. So this year at Senior Lifestyle, we have been working on one of our signature programs, our Brain Health University. And this is a program that's been around for quite a long time. We started this program, I think, about 15 years ago with our residents to really think about a creative way to help them engage in brain healthy activities throughout their regular, program of daily activities to support their cognitive health, but also to help them with this fear that a lot of older adults have about what happens to their brain as they age. Um, so the program, again, has been around for several years, and this year we wanted to take a look and think about how do we enhance the program, look at research, and make sure that it's still relevant, and make sure that it's something that we can continue to use in the future. So that's where we reach back out to you to get your ideas and your support with the program. So Dr. Rob Winningham is a professor, researcher, and author in the brain health field, a brain health expert, if you will. You actually helped us when we originally built the program about 15 years ago. And so some of that structure is still there. And we've been working together for maybe about 6 months to a year with the curriculum, looking at ways to make it better. So how did you get involved in this work? Tell me a little bit about that.
This is fun work to be involved with, but my background has always been in human memory. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but I used to do research in implanting false memories in college students. I also did research on how people remember crime, so eyewitness memory, and would inform
Okay.
judges and juries about memory.
Fascinating.
And it was an interesting area, but a lot of the best work had been done. And when I was in graduate school, I needed to come up with an idea that nobody had ever done before.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to know about how older adults remember crime scenes. And
Okay.
and so it seems a bit off target, but what that afforded me was a year of my life. The only responsibility I had for a year was to study memory in older adults. And I
Okay.
did my dissertation. I don't even think about older adults and crimes anymore. But that year just allowed me to get completely up to speed and really read all of the research. That was like in 1999. And then I got a job as a professor out here in Oregon, and I
Okay.
wanted to collect data on older adults' memory.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity to work in some assisted living communities.
Okay.
And I would go in and collect the data. I spent a lot of time in these communities,
Hmm.
although I think they called them assisted living facilities back then. I try not to
Right.
say that anymore. And I was just struck by how little engagement was happening. Now, this was in the early 2000s,
Hmm.
but I was really struck by how little was going on there,
Hmm.
and thought, well, let's exercise their brains.
Yeah.
And a lot of the exercises we came up with were somewhat based on neuropsychology tests that we
Okay.
knew if you can do this activity, we know this part of your brain is okay. And
Okay.
so that training, my PhD's in neuroscience, that training kind of allowed us to create some total brain health programs. And we've been doing that
Wonderful.
for almost 25 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I initially crossed paths with you at the ICAA, the International Council on Active Aging. I believe it was during some conference sessions, and then also in my work at Senior Lifestyle with Terry Fay, who was our national director of programming at the time, who actually had reached out to you because when we initially put the program together, we really wanted it to be something that could be led across all of our communities with a low entry point as far as budget, but also something that our teams were capable of leading across the board. So you really helped us kind of get our first building bones for this program. And then your work has continued. It's been really fascinating to see all the different organizations you've been a part of and contribute with because this field is really rapidly expanding.
Right.
And it's pretty incredible. So we're really excited that you're able to come back around and help us again. From your perspective as a brain health expert, why should this type of activity or program be a priority for seniors?
I think there's a lot of reasons this needs to be a priority. I mean, one, it needs to be a priority for our senior living communities
Hmm.
because more and more prospective residents and family members are expecting brain health programming.
Yeah.
So there's that. But the benefits for the residents are primary.
Hmm.
I think our goal is, I often will use the phrase just quality of life. We want to
Hmm.
maximize quality of life. And that
Yeah.
means different things to different people at different stages of life. But we've seen in the research that brain health efforts can improve independence, can decrease one's chance of falling, can improve the quality of social interactions. In
Amazing.
addition to just remembering that I already took my medication this morning, some
Right.
really pragmatic things. So,
Right.
yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important for older adults. But gosh, I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective, you reach a certain age and you start thinking about these things. And you know that having good cognitive abilities and memory abilities is important for a good life.
Absolutely. As I'm teaching this curriculum to our program directors and sharing it with our residents, there's so many pieces that I take away from myself and think, gosh, I'm really, really glad that I get to be a part of this because hopefully this will help me in the future as well.
Exactly.
What do you feel are some of the biggest misconceptions about brain health?
Yeah, I think a couple of them. I mean, one is just it's genetic, that it's inevitable. If I'm going to have cognitive impairment, if I'm going to have dementia, there's nothing I can do about that. It's all based on how well I chose my parents. And there are some genetic components, although they're not as large as people think.
Okay.
And the one that we do have to watch out for, I just want people to know that if a first degree relative, a brother, sister, mom, dad, had early onset dementia,
Okay.
there's probably a strong genetic component, unless it was a
Mm-hmm.
stroke. But for most people, there are many lifestyle factors,
Mm-hmm.
environmental factors, things that are in our control that have a
Mm-hmm.
significant impact on our memory ability and our brain health as we age. So that's the first misconception. The second misconception is it's almost never too late. And um,
I
and
love
and I
that.
think it's important to say it's almost never too late because I want to be honest with this, and I
Mm-hmm.
think we all have to be honest. When somebody kind of reaches that mid stage of dementia
Mm-hmm.
and later, there's
Mm-hmm.
much less that we can do.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people would be surprised at the research. It just came out in a paper I published a couple of years ago. We reviewed all of the published literature, and the sweet spot, the people that we can improve the most, are people who've been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment.
Wow.
So that's one
Okay.
step away from early dementia,
Mm-hmm.
but they're beginning to have some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people that we can help the most. If we get them in before that and start doing some things, that is good. But
Mm-hmm.
even people that are beginning to experience some impairment can see significant improvements to their memory ability, cognitive ability, thus
Yeah.
their quality of life.
That is really great news, and I think because this program is geared towards our residents living in independent living and assisted living, if we're able to get them involved in learning about different aspects of caring for their brain, we can help them to truly have a better quality of life and stay engaged in our programs and keep every level of independence that we can possible for them, help them maintain that cognitive functioning. Great. Um, what does some of the current research tell us about different factors that are important? What should we be focusing on based on the research?
Well, fortunately, we can answer that by looking at Brain Health University. Brain Health University appears to be built on 6 pillars.
Mm-hmm.
One, we want to have mental stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the research shows.
Mm-hmm.
Physical activity. There's
Mm-hmm.
actually probably more research on that topic than any other in this
Okay.
space. So,
Okay.
mental engagement, physical activity, and increasingly, there's more research coming out on social engagement, the
Mm-hmm.
third pillar.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
managing stress,
Mm-hmm.
and maximizing the quantity and quality of our sleep. Those
Yeah.
are the 6 pillars
Yeah.
of Brain
We
Health
got
University.
it.
And I don't know, I don't know if I would add, looking at the research, particularly the recent research, I don't know if I would add anything else for kind of
Okay.
the main topic. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what the research would say.
Okay.
I think increasingly we are figuring out, what type of physical activities and
Mm-hmm.
how can we do physical activity while we do cognitive activity.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, those 6 pillars are what the research supports.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, being that we worked with you early on, it's great to know that some things are still remaining steady and that the foundation of the program is solid with those key factors. And then you mentioned a couple things like the dual tasking with the physical activities. Learning about some of these additional pieces can really help us support the growth of the program for the future.
Right. And I think one of the exciting things just about our work together is that you are training team leaders that know this science. And kind of seeing this program, I can't help but imagine that this knowledge, these ideas are going to be infused in other aspects of the programming throughout the year, even when we're not running a Brain Health University program. And that's exciting.
Absolutely.
So it's nice
Yeah.
that when the team members are up to speed, then they can motivate residents, they can inform residents, and I think the residents have more confidence in them as well.
Absolutely. I think that will lead very nicely into one of the first takeaways on enhancing Brain Health University for the future was having our team members go through the certified cognitive trainer program that you've built.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about why that's so important that we train our team members and how the program can really improve with their understanding.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to give the team members the knowledge. I want the team members to be able to talk about the science, and they don't need to go into deep, deep explanations of the science, but they should feel confident in talking about what the science says and what it doesn't say as well.
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, right away, that's important. Like I said, I think that'll be infused throughout the programming throughout the year. But there's another benefit that is really important, and I think is often underappreciated. They will be able to inform residents of the actual real world benefits of the programming you have in your communities. And we call that health literacy. And we know that when we can improve residents, older adults' health literacy, they're more motivated to do the things that could help. Because we have to remember, we're asking them to do the things that are actually hard for them to do now.
Right.
And the
Right.
more of that, the better. We actually, if somebody, sometimes we'll even kind of customize brain health programs, like especially if somebody's had a brain injury. And I'm always just struck by how we want them to do the things that they're having a hard time doing. And that can be really challenging. So it's important for the team members to be able to say, this is why we're doing it. And then, you have skilled team members, and I think many of them are going to take it to that next step and actually work with individual residents to look at their individual goals to see how these sorts of activities, intervention, and programming ideas can help individual residents meet their goals.
Yeah.
That is person-centered care.
Yeah. Great. I think so. Some of our team members have already been taking the course. We have a few that have gotten right in and completed it right away. They're really excited about the knowledge that they've learned so far. And I do think sometimes when we're motivating our residents, especially our most independent residents, for our team members to have the knowledge to say this is why, because sometimes a brain health activity or exercise isn't that different from something that we might already have on the calendar, or it could be some sort of a word puzzle that might not seem like the most, fascinating thing that we could be doing for our brain today, but it's sometimes those simple daily exercises and routines that are making a huge impact. And for us to be able to understand that and know the why behind it, to say, yes, I know you could do this on your own in your room, or I know that this seems like something you did in grade school, but these are the same brain functions that we need to preserve for today.
Exactly. And I think related to that is when we have team members that are up to speed on that, we're elevating the profession.
Yeah.
I want to elevate the profession of life enrichment professionals
Yeah.
because, and I don't think many of them realize how much of their day-to-day experience is based on the science. And I just want them to know that. And so everybody
Yeah.
together can lift up life enrichment because it makes a real difference in people's lives.
It absolutely does. I think on that point, when I started in the field, and over the years, I'm sure anybody in life enrichment or programming can relate to this as being called like the cruise director, the party person, the bingo girl, and while we do have a lot of fun and we do play a lot of games, our work is really meaningful and really important to quality of life. And so these types of trainings just really, I think, help us, like you said, to elevate that and remind people that fun and games can actually be purposeful. But we have to be able to understand that. So this training is going to be really key, I think, to helping our team members take things to the next level. Um, So our brain health curriculum, it focuses on those 6 elements of a brain healthy lifestyle, which we talked about. We typically run it in what we call a semester, which would be 1 month out of the year, and we run 2 semesters a year, where residents have the opportunity to take part in about 12 classes, earning a certificate at the end of that semester. We try to use a lot of terminology that helps separate it from our other daily programs, students, classes, semester, etc. Um, Residents can participate in any or all of the classes, but how do you think an immersive 1 month program how does that actually help our residents? Is that something that can be meaningful and can actually help them to improve their cognition over time?
Yeah, well, the first I would just say is I just love the program, and I love how it's just kind of wrapped in kind of an academic feel, with the name Brain Health
Mm-hmm.
Universities
Mm-hmm.
and semesters, and I think we
Mm-hmm.
even have a syllabus,
We do. We have a syllabus and a leader's guide and
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a lot of fun, ending with
mm-hmm.
a certificate, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
can really help engagement. So the benefits. So I mean, obviously, I think one benefit is everybody walks away with more health literacy, both the team members
Mm-hmm.
and the residents, and we already
Mm-hmm.
talked about the benefits of that in terms of being motivated to do the things that can improve our quality of life and our
Mm-hmm.
brain health. So there's that. The research would show, as long as and I think this is one thing we were hoping to kind of add more of, as long as we have enough cognitive stimulation activities,
Mm-hmm.
we, in the research, about 4 to 6 weeks, we often see improvements in attention, executive functioning
Mm-hmm.
that can lead to new memories. And,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't completely the focus here, but I think that is something that we're likely to see. I think particularly for people kind of in that mild cognitive
Mm-hmm.
impairment range,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if they weren't doing a lot before. But the other thing that's nice about the Brain Health University, as I see it, is while we have a solid foundation, and and the leader's guide is good. You can
Mm-hmm.
walk in almost day one and,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of be able to pick up a session, which
Yep.
is important. Sometimes people are out, they have vacations, they get
Mm-hmm.
sick, and I think that's really important. The other thing that it allows residents to kind of come and go. I've seen some programs where you need to be there every time. Somebody just has one day away and they choose not to sign up because they
Right.
don't want to miss a single day.
Right.
And so I think you've set it up nicely that way. And the activities can often be varied
Mm-hmm.
based on cognitive level for
Mm-hmm.
the residents. But one of the things that I think is a big takeaway and a big strength of the program is I think there's room in the program for the team leaders to kind of add their own spin on this. And
Absolutely.
this is important because I've worked with a lot of life enrichment
Mm-hmm.
professionals, and they're all kind of experts on at least a few areas. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is great. We should do
It's a
something
really
together.
eclectic bunch of people.
Yeah, I mean,
Truly.
I've almost never met an engaged life enrichment director that I couldn't give a presentation with and
Mm-hmm.
give people new things because they
Yep.
have so much real experience. And so I really appreciate that. I hope that allows the team leaders to really connect with the residents and
Mm-hmm.
allow the team leaders to feel empowered and really
Yeah.
shine when they're
Yeah.
leading Brain Health University.
Great. One of the things too about hosting or leading the program in 2 semesters throughout the year is it does create a little excitement for our residents. We've noticed that anything that we put on and we have it on weekly or monthly, it does start to lose interest over time. So having it on the calendar and then off for a while and then bringing it back gives people a chance to get excited about it again. But my other hope is that as we have all of our program directors trained in the cognitive certified instructor course, that their regular day-to-day programs are going to be able to really be like a nice segue from the brain health curriculum. So while we might not be in a brain health semester, we're still leading quality programs every day that our residents are still getting the benefit. But these semesters are a chance to really teach our residents about why these types of activities are important, and then we can continue to lead them throughout the year.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about our teams completing that training. So our tagline for the program is novelty. In order to stimulate your brain, we need novelty, variety, and challenge. So what does that mean to you, or what's kind of a takeaway from that? What stands out to you in that tagline?
Well, once again, Brain Health University is based on the science.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the science shows.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this in a lot of areas too, novelty, variety, and appropriate challenge.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I just can't help but think of how we train physical and occupational and speech therapists. The exact same thing is true with them.
Okay.
We're really trying to change the brain. The brain responds to novelty. And so that is good. The brain also responds to variety. That keeps it interesting. Every module is different, and that's important.
Yep.
But the appropriate challenge, that really is a challenge.
It is.
And I've run a lot of brain health programs, and if I had to say the biggest challenge when you just open the door and let everybody in is you'll have some people that are sharp or sharper than us, and then you have some people that are really struggling with their memory and their cognition all in the same room. And so to kind of build in that ability to make it appropriate for different residents, that's key.
Yeah. One thing that we focus on in our internal training is how do we adapt some of those programs. So when we're thinking about maybe the physical activities or the nutrition programs, it's really easy to think of adaptations because we're thinking about physical equipment or ingredients that go into a dish. When we think about the cognitive programs, it can get a little bit trickier. I'll share one way that I used to adapt things, and then if you have ideas on how to adapt some of those cognitive programs, that would be great too. But so any of the pen to paper type exercises, a lot of the cranium crunches and the things that you've put together, I would print them out and give them to everybody and give the directions and then give a set amount of time for everybody, whether it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and just say, okay, we're going to have you work on this for 5 or 10 minutes independently, quietly. Then we'll come together and work on it as a group. And then I would try to engage some of the residents that were the quickest, fastest to finish the worksheet, because sometimes people want to be the first one.
Yeah, right.
And if they're calling out the answers in the middle of a group, it completely shuts down the process for somebody else. So then I would give them a chance to say, okay, Mary, can you give us a hint on question number 1? And a lot of times that helped. That was one way. But do you have any other tips on adapting the cognitive programs?
Well, in the Certified Cognitive Stimulation Instructor program, we have about 30 minutes on this topic.
Woo, okay.
Because it is so important. And you need to have a lot of different tools in your toolbox to handle different situations.
Yeah.
And I like the ones that you suggest. The classes that I've done, it seems like there's always one person that is just super competitive. And they just want and gosh, I'm probably going to irritate some people. It's more likely to be a male in my experience, And so, and you just need to be prepared. And so, and I'm just looking for it. I'm waiting for it. And so one of the things I do is, and so let's say Bill finishes, I'm done, like we just got started.
Right.
He was actually cheating. He got done so fast, and he's like, I'm done. And you got to acknowledge that. Bill, you're so fast.
Yes.
But you know what I do? And if it's paper and pencil, I take whatever he was working on, I turn it upside down, and I'll give him something. It might just be, I might write out hippocampus. That's the part of the brain where we make new memories. And say, Bill, I want to see how many words that you can make using those letters.
So give him an additional challenge.
Yeah. And then I would probably pat his back there as I walk away. I would also look, is there an opportunity to recruit Bill and have Bill kind of help me with the class? And one of the things, because I have to do this with students at the university, you have that student. And I often have to have a conversation with that student is, I need you to not raise your hand right away. If nobody else can answer, that's when I'm looking for you.
Yeah.
And then I even have that student I'm thinking of, had to have that conversation with, and he's actually working in my research lab this term. I'm taking him in, he is good.
Yeah.
And that now he has the confidence, and he's being recognized, and now he's a part of my team.
Wonderful.
He's not going to be working against me.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. But I'll give you just one more really pragmatic idea. And it's kind of a neat thing that comes out of the science. If somebody has really good cognitive abilities, not experiencing
Mm-hmm.
any impairment, and we ask about some memory question, we don't give them any cues. It might be something like, "What's the fact of the day?" And I want them to just tell me what it is without any cues.
Okay.
Now, if somebody has cognitive impairment, they could be in the same space. I could focus on them. I could ask them, what is the fact of the day? How many neurons do we have? Is it 86,000, 86 million, or 86 billion? And if you give them a multiple choice, even people with significant cognitive impairment, if they had been paying
Mm-hmm.
attention, they will usually get a multiple choice question right.
Okay.
And sometimes they don't even realize we're doing it different between the
Mm-hmm.
two, but we want to give them success.
Okay.
There is some research on this in terms of adjusting the level, and the research shows, and some of the software, like if you buy brain health software to really target
Mm-hmm.
brain exercises somebody might do individually, it looks to be, if you want to get maximum improvement, it's 80 to 85% correct.
Okay.
And that might be a little too much incorrect for some personality types, but we actually do want to make it hard enough to make a difference.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, I like that. Um, so so our program, part of the kind of the specialty of it is we're teaching our residents in the beginning of each class about why this particular exercise is good for their brain. So in the leader's guide, each lesson plan has an introduction and a purpose. So they're not just giving a worksheet out and having the residents complete it, but we're talking about why this type of exercise is good for our brain or what part of the brain. Um, and then we're doing it together. So there's a little bit of learning and then there's an experiential part. And even if it is a nutritional program, there's some learning about the ingredients and then we're moving into creating that smoothie or whatever the snack is and enjoying it together. So how does blending that learning with the experiential part help create a program that is beneficial for everyone?
Well, first, it's just the sign of a master teacher. We don't generally want to lecture at people for 60 or 90 minutes straight. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to become disengaged,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think there's some of that. I mean, that's just good. That's just good teaching. But the other thing too is the residents. I always think about how much life experience they have, and they don't want to be lectured to. They want to share some of their life experience, and when we ask
For
the right
sure.
questions, that comes through. Then that's a
Mm-hmm.
more positive experience for
Mm-hmm.
them. But it also goes back to the idea of variety,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
even within the sessions, we have some variety, or
Mm-hmm.
variety of our, kind of our delivery styles
Mm-hmm.
we're using. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's appropriate. But there's one more benefit that just can't be understated. We could talk about this more. It's the social part. Whenever we have the team leader stop talking, we let the residents or the students do things.
Mm-hmm.
They're engaging with each other,
Yep.
and that might be as important as the brain exercise itself, if maybe for no other reason,
Absolutely.
because it is cognitively stimulated
Mm-hmm.
to be socially engaged.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that is when we think about our programming in general, that social aspect, always rises to the top. It's a chance for them to come out, build community, connect with their peers, and get the benefit of brain health or fitness or whatever the topic may be.
And I think that's just important for us to be talking about, because I know your team leaders, I know your staff are mindful of all of this, but
Mm-hmm.
I think there's, even my own teaching, I'm actually increasingly doing this with our students, because our even college students are having a hard time connecting socially
Mm-hmm.
after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just very mindful of just taking a few extra minutes to allowing them to connect.
Okay.
And I think your team leaders could
Yeah.
benefit from that. And I know many of them are,
Yeah.
but it's such a huge positive impact on people's lives.
Definitely. And I do think when seniors are moving into assisted living, when they're first coming in, it can be really overwhelming. And a lot of times they're coming from a home environment where they might have been getting along okay, but they'd kind of dropped back on some of their regular routine things to preserve their everyday needs. So when they move into assisted living, it's a chance for them to kind of bring that back again and have a chance to spend time with friends, learn something new, and just really, engage with people a little bit more because they don't have to worry about fixing their next meal or doing their laundry. We can now help them focus that time on things that are really important to their quality of life,
Oh,
like
that's
brain
right.
health.
Exactly.
um, so what would you say? I know we talked about this a little bit in the beginning about it never really maybe being too late. What would you say to somebody who feels like I don't know if I would be able to benefit from this program or these classes are really hard for me? What would you say to them as far as how to encourage them to participate?
Well, my first thought in my head is if somebody has the awareness to say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would do well in these
Mm-hmm.
classes, that they probably would they could probably benefit from the classes. It's actually when we lose that awareness, that's the kind of the level of which
Yeah.
these types of interventions don't seem they can improve quality of life, but they won't improve memory ability, cognitive ability per
Yeah.
se. So I would say that. I think it's also important, and I'm glad I get to spend so much time with the team members. I think we have some calls set up. They
Mm-hmm.
also get the training
Yeah.
videos because I mean I hope that they kind of lean on me a little bit on this
Mm-hmm.
and too. So they can say, in our training with Dr. Rob, he said X, Y, and Z, and I hope that
Yeah.
that helps too, and that
Yeah.
they know that they've been through the training, but they also have somebody else to kind of lean on.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it wasn't always this way, but kind of having that, that credibility
I
there
agree.
can
I
be
agree
helpful.
completely. I think just having your expertise and the actual research behind all of this is really helpful for people to get excited about the program. And then their excitement, when I'm thinking the team members, that carries over to the residents. So when we're thinking about how do we motivate people to come out and take part, is if I'm the program director and I'm feeling confident and maybe a little bit renewed, this program's been around for a long time and we've been doing it and doing it and doing it, but now it's a little different. Now I've taken the certified cognitive course and I feel a little bit more knowledgeable about it. There's some new content that you've provided and that we have access to through some other subscriptions to improve the program. Now, hopefully, that excitement carries over to the residents. So we can say, you're really going to want to come and try this. This program, I know we've had it for a long time, but it's different. We're improving it. And the opportunity that we've had to engage with you for our team members has been, I think, really helpful.
And I think this is just an important topic. We need as many tools as possible to motivate residents because what does it mean to have motivated residents? I think that means to have more engaged residents because
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be out there taking advantage of the programming. And that's also kind of baked into in an important way into the certification course.
Okay.
We have a whole module on motivation.
Great.
And just to kind of give you a little bit of a primer on what they will see there, and I think this is also useful in thinking about motivating people. There's two aspects. One, self-efficacy. They need to believe they can
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were kind of asking about somebody, what would you say? In order to prove self-efficacy, I want to give them success.
Okay.
And I want them to see other people like them succeeding, which is
Okay.
another benefit of a group-based
Yeah.
experience. Then the other aspect of motivation is what do they get for doing this work? Sometimes work that can be very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. What are the outcomes they get? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where knowing the science is helpful. Like this will improve your ability to pay attention and make new memories. But the team leaders can then translate that and say, because Margaret, I know you have told me that you want to be able to get to the airport and get to a plane, and that is a goal, and you're
Mm-hmm.
physically capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Doing these types of activities will help you be cognitively capable of doing that as well. So
Nice.
really connecting it to their specific goals.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. So a lot of brain health is a hot topic. It is, if you go to any senior community, you're probably seeing something that's advertising brain health or talking about brain health. What makes this Brain Health University program stand out as maybe a differentiator? How can our team members talk about it now that you know a little bit more about the program?
Well, I think the big differentiator is we didn't just come up with a fancy name and say we are doing this. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I think that's happening a lot. And then you
Yeah.
go in,
Yeah.
you query about what they're doing, and it really isn't a lot.
Hmm.
So this is, Brain Health University is based on the scientific
Hmm.
foundation. I hope they all can just rattle it off. We got mental stimulation, we got
Hmm.
physical exercise, we got social engagement, nutrition, reducing stress, and maximizing quantity and quality of sleep. Just to be able to kind of
Yeah.
talk about that right
Yep.
there is good. But also to talk about novelty. We're
Hmm.
going to be bringing in new ideas, new
Yep.
things. It's going to be varied. We're going
Yeah.
to keep your interest, and we'll be able to adjust to make it appropriately challenging for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that is some of it, but it's also just incredibly thoughtful. I mean, the if you read through the team leader's guide,
Hmm.
I mean, every module is really thoughtful. And I was just so impressed with it. It was really easy to kind of help update it because the bones were there. It was based on the correct science. And so I think those are some of the things that team members can use when they're talking about this.
Okay. I hope they're really proud of it because it's a program that I feel really proud to be a part of and worked on all these years. And then being able to reach out to you from the very beginning, and then now 15 years later to enhance the program. It's a program that I think can really truly set aside our communities as a differentiator when it comes to brain health. If they do take the time to take the course and then lead the classes as they are outlined in the guide. So
I
this
agree.
is
They should be
yeah,
proud of it. And we need to make sure your marketing staff knows about it too, because they
absolutely.
need to be proud about it and tell prospective residents what we're doing here.
Absolutely. And you touched on this idea of novelty. So, our overall program for our independent living and assisted living communities is called Explore. And we really came to that word because we want our residents to have something to look forward to each day. So, not necessarily the travel based idea of Explore, but this idea that what do I get to do today? When I open up my calendar, what am I looking forward to? And having something new to try piques curiosity and gets people excited. And I think this brain health program also kind of touches on that need a little bit.
I agree. And having success there, I often say in this context, success begets success. Then people want to try other
Yeah.
programming opportunities in the community. And then you just create this vibrant community that people want to come be a part of.
Yeah. Great. Great. Um, if there's one message about brain health that you think is most important for our residents to hear, what would that be?
Oh, it's hard for me to give one. Can I give two?
Yeah.
So I mean the one we have talked about it already. The one is that it's almost never too late, and so we want to get people out there doing this, and then we want to celebrate and share that.
Hmm.
I go back to the idea of motivation. Of seeing other people like you succeed can make you believe that you can do it as
Hmm.
well. The other one is it's important to get the mental engagement, but if we're looking at the research, moving every day, getting
Yeah.
out and moving every day,
Yeah.
that might be one of the single most important factors.
Yeah. Great. Great. And you talked about seeing people succeed. Something that has been kind of just a fun addition to our brain health, but overwhelmingly something that residents really look forward to is we do a certificate at the end of the semester, and we do a graduation each semester, which allows our residents to be recognized for participating. They get recognized in front of their peers. And many of our residents look forward to this graduation and they'll frame their certificates. It's really meaningful for them. And I hopefully that also maybe motivates people. If they didn't take part this semester, maybe they see that celebration and think, what's going on over there? Maybe I want to take part in that next time around. But it's a really fun way to celebrate the closing of each semester.
And it sounds like you're instigating a little bit of FOMO.
Yes, exactly.
Residents.
Yes, right.
That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of a great way for us to close out. What my last question for you is what gives you hope for the future with brain health? It can be scary. I think even in talking with residents, they've experienced decline of a loved one, or even they're noticing it in themselves. And so, understanding all of the research behind brain health, what gives you hope for the future?
Yeah, I'll just start with, I agree that it can be scary for
Mm-hmm.
people, and that actually can be a barrier for them to even show up to a class.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be found out or something, and so
Yeah.
I think we need to be sensitive to that. But in that context, there is hope, and the
Mm-hmm.
hope is that the many behaviors that are in our control
Mm-hmm.
have real and meaningful benefits, and it's taken us a while as scientists to figure that out completely, to articulate that appropriately. But now this year we can say those things, and I think that's where the hope is. But I think there's more hope, and I think the increasing hope is that I feel like the people that are entering senior living now
Mm-hmm.
are more aware of this and more
Mm-hmm.
motivated than the people entering senior living when I started working in the space.
True.
And
Yeah.
that's huge. And
Yeah.
what has happened now as a result of this is more senior living communities, not just the best ones, the highest, the
Mm-hmm.
with the highest entry fees and all that, but just even kind of the mid-tier senior living communities are investing in
Mm-hmm.
this. That
Mm-hmm.
gives me tremendous hope,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
these opportunities are going to be available to more people.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for all of the time that you've put in to helping us make this program great. I think a couple of highlights that I do want to share before we close out is just that you had done a wonderful session for just our program directors, just informing them of the latest research. And then when we kick off our next semester, you're going to do a similar session specifically for our residents. So the residents will actually have a chance to hear you talk about the research a bit and maybe motivate them a little bit to take part in our next semester. So that's going to be, I think, just another great way to kick off the next semester and energize this program even further. So I do want to thank you for that.
That'll be fun. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah. Great.